What should you do if you are over 55 and have little or nothing saved for retirement? In this video, I will give you my top 12 recommendations. Welcome to another episode of the Financial Fast Lane. My name is Lane Martinson. Today we are talking about what you can do if you are getting a late start. If you are over 50, or maybe over 55, maybe you're already in your 60s and you have little or nothing saved for retirement. I am going to give you 12 specific things you can do, or you should at least consider. First, know that you are not alone and that it is never too late. Many people approaching retirement age find themselves in this situation, wondering where the time went. So don't be too hard on yourself. In the beginning of your career, you were young, just trying to get by and make ends meet. Maybe you started a family, bought your first house, you raised kids, and maybe even helped them with college. And now you find yourself 50-something or 60-something, wondering where the time went. And you find yourself with little or nothing saved for retirement. Of course, starting early is better than starting late, but you can make up for lost ground. I recognize everyone's situation is unique, and what works for one person may not work for another, for a host of reasons. But the purpose of this video is to give you some practical ideas and strategies to consider. Ideas that can make a very big difference to you in your golden retirement years. Number 2, take inventory of your situation. Identify your timeline. Evaluate all the possibilities. For example, if you are 55, in good health, you have 10 years before you are 65 and 15 years before you're 70. You can accomplish a lot in 15 years or 10 years or even 5 years. But you've got to be focused and you've got to have a real plan of action. Your greatest asset is your ability to earn an income. If you have an income or the ability to earn an income, that is your golden goose. It's not about how much you earn, it's what you keep that matters. You would be surprised with how many people with high incomes, even super high incomes, that have very little or nothing saved. On the flip side, you'd be surprised with how many people with very modest or lower incomes have a surprisingly sizable amount of money set aside for retirement. As a financial planner, I see both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. When we earn more, the natural tendency is to spend more. A great quote from George Clayson: "That which each of us calls our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our incomes, unless we protest to the contrary." You cannot effectively protest without a plan and without a clear goal. Recommendation number 3 is to know your numbers. You need to know where your money is going. You need to know your cash inflow and your outflow, the income and the expenses. It's called a budget. The word budget is not a very popular word. Many people feel like following a budget is difficult. If that is you, I would suggest that you change the way you think of a budget. Even give it a different name if that helps. Keep it simple. In its simplest form, it is A, knowing where your money is going, and B, controlling where your money is going. You cannot manage that what you do not measure. A budget does not hold you back, it sets you free. Recommendation number 4 is complete a 30-day spending audit. Make a commitment to track all of your spending for 30 days or for the next full month. I mean, track every penny. You can simply do it with a piece of paper. Don't overcomplicate it. Or if you'd like, you can download a spending audit spreadsheet that we created. It's a very simple, powerful tool, an Excel spreadsheet that we designed just for this purpose. It's a free download, and there is a link in the description below on how to get that. Recommendation number 5 is to keep more of your own money. When you have clarity on how much income is coming in and where it is going every month, you will be empowered to make some changes. Imagine with me for a minute what it would be like if you were able to keep all of your income, or in other words, if you had no expenses at all every month. I know that that's not at all realistic, but just do the math. If you could save and wisely invest all of your income every month for the next 5, 10, or 15 years, how much of a nest egg could you accumulate? It would be a significant amount of money, even with a modest income, right? Recommendation number 6 is to get creative and think outside the box. Let me share with you a personal story. My wife Tara and I met in college. We were poor college students, but the lack of money did not prevent us from getting married. And we did not want to wait long before we started our family. We didn't know how we were going to make ends meet, and we knew it would be challenging, but we wanted and were determined to face life's challenges, whatever they may be, together. A few years later, I was still trying to finish up my schooling, and I was working full time. We were renting an apartment, and we very much wanted to save to buy our first house. We took an inventory of our income and expenses. Saving any money seemed almost impossible. This is where we started to get creative. Our biggest expense was the rent payment every month. We started to think of ways we could possibly live for at least 1 year without a rent payment. Moving in with parents with a wife and 2 small children at this point was not a viable option for us at the time. But we were determined to find a way to drastically lower our expenses. So we started brainstorming. My wife had previously volunteered at a care center. She is very nurturing, and she loved to visit and care for elderly people. I had the thought, I wonder how many elderly people there are in our city that are living in their home alone, but have reached a point where they need assisted living and would love to have a live-in assisted care provider. Then I wondered if we could find someone that would be okay if the care provider came with a husband and 2 small children. We had never heard of anyone doing anything like that before, but we decided to test the waters and to see if there were any takers. Of course, this was back before the internet, and so we ran an ad in the classified section of the local newspaper. We were surprised to receive about a half a dozen calls of people looking for live-in care providers for their aging parents. We had more than one solid offer. We met with the first interested family. We fell in love with them, and they fell in love with us. It was an elderly man in his 90s. He had recovered from a stroke, but had some paralysis and some limitations. He was a very kind, sweet man that absolutely loved children. He lived in a 2-story home. His adult children offered us room and board. We had the full basement to ourselves, including all utilities paid, and my wife was able to do the shopping and prepare his meals and provide the needed care. And they also paid her $600 per month additional. The commitment was for a minimum of 1 year, and a little before the year was complete, Grandpa Joe, as we lovingly called him, passed away in my wife's arms when I was away at work. But this experience was a miracle to us on many levels. We were able to drastically reduce our expenses and even increase our income. After 1 year, we had saved enough for a down payment, and we bought our first house. Let me tell you another creative, out-of-the-box story of a couple age 61. They had very little saved for retirement, but the husband's job was going well, and his income was really at the highest level of his entire career. They got creative and created an aggressive plan that would allow them to reduce their expenses by nearly 70% for 3 years. They sold their large home with the plan to downsize to something less expensive to maintain. They actually moved in with their adult daughter, who was working part-time and struggling to go to school and taking care of her 2-year-old son. They offered to rent a bedroom from her, share utility expenses, and provide care for their grandson for this 3-year period until their daughter graduated college. Their plan helped their daughter immensely. It saved her from paying for childcare, and they were able to save 70% of their income over a 3-year period. This was a big win for both parties. After 3 years, They bought a comfortable one-level condo with very low maintenance costs. Recommendation 7 is to work longer. For decades, the age of 65 has been the arbitrary assumed age of retirement. Why is that? In the past, this was what Social Security designated as the full retirement age. And 65 is the age when you can become eligible for Medicare. But I believe it's outdated. We live significantly longer nowadays, and 70 is the new 65. We really do live longer, and the odds that you or your spouse will live into your 90s and beyond is statistically high. Higher than many people think. You should plan to live to 100 because many of you will. I know many people in their 70s still working, some